Willie D Live.
In the studio, Pimpin, Ken, Ivy, and dun dun dun, Game God.
Goldie, the one and only.
Man, Game God, Goldie, the one and only. Now, do you say that always the same way?
I say it the same way every
Game
time.
God,
Hey, just like Weezy,
Goldie,
baby, please
the
say
one
the
and
baby.
only. Yeah.
Game God, Goldie, you got to please say it all, you know?
Pimp name slip back. Got to say the whole thing. Man, how did you guys come together? First of all, I know your record.
Right.
I was unfamiliar with you, Goldie, until I started seeing these interviews that you guys were doing together.
Yeah.
Now, I heard you talking. Boy, you got a mouthpiece. You're cold-blooded. More important than your mouthpiece is your brain, the way you think, the way you wired. How did you two guys come together?
Man, I love when he tell the story. Go ahead, let him know how it happened.
Well, it was a situation where he came to me, and the situation went all the way together. So I said, brother, I like the way you demonstrate. I said, I want to come on your show. He has a podcast too. So I went on his podcast, and when I went on his podcast, he started putting the videos out. And the videos did 500,000, 1 million, 250,000, and we knew then that, we were Batman and Robin. You know what I'm saying? And we was a dynamic duo. And I think that that's really what fostered our relationship. And at the same time, he know that, I'm the founder of the hip hop fraternity, and I also have hip hop fraternity, HHF management. So I said, brother, I would like to manage you. I would like to show you, that I could take you places, where no nigga been before, in your space. And he said, cool. So I was like, okay, let's get together, and we started doing this podcast run, started going to these different platforms, and now everybody, when they see him, they see me, and they be like, man, where he at? If I'm by myself, they ask me where he at. If he by himself, they ask him where I'm at. So I think that, but more importantly than anything, though, Brother Willie, is that the brother's intelligence. A lot of people don't know that I did 10 years in prison. I read a lot. I always tell people, they say, well, man, your name Pimpin Kid. I said, well, Malcolm's name was Malcolm Little. I said, if you love Malcolm, you should love me. He was a pimp too. So, that is one of the things people don't know. I liken myself not as Malcolm X, but some of the same roles that Malcolm took, I took, right? And while Malcolm was in the prison, he educated himself. While I was in prison, I educated myself as well. I know all about Islam. I know about Christianity. I know about history and everything. I read every historical book you could read, every biblical book you could read, every Quranic book you could read. So I'm looking at it the way you looking at it. I can see the wisdom, coming from his person and emitting from his body. And I said, man, this dude here, outside of, the gold and the jewelry and the flash, he's a really brilliant young man. And that's what really attracted him to me.
Hey, you got to tell him about the book. We didn't even know this, but one of the biggest stories that I have is, the first book I ever read as an adult was Think and Grow Rich, and that changed my life completely and got me on a journey of reading books and getting wisdom. And he told me the same thing after we met, that he read Think and Grow Rich in prison, and that changed his life as well.
At the same age, 19.
Yep,
we both read it at 19.
Who's the author of that book?
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
It's an awesome book.
You alluded to it earlier. Let's go back to Pimpin.
Okay.
How do you feel about the accusations that people say that Pimpin inherently exploits and degrades women?
Well, I say that people don't understand the game. 99% of the women out there today is pimpless. They're doing it on their own. You have lawyers, doctors. You have women. I know you've been in the entertainment business. I know you went in a strip club in Magic City somewhere. They say, oh, I'm just dancing to go to college. And people get this misconception because it started in 1960s with the exploitation of African-American films. Your Willie Dynamite, the Mac, Superfly. They started depicting African-American men as like savages and women beater. But it all go back to the birth of a nation, under Jim Crowism. When Europeans first started depicting us as below, human, and, blacks only, whites only. That's Jim Crowism. So it started then, but then it kicked back in, during the 60s because you had Black Power, the Black Panthers, you had Elvis Cleavers, you had Huey Newton, You had Minister Farrakhan, you had Malcolm X, you had a bunch of conscientious things going on at that era and time. So they had to do something to depict that. And Brother Wesley Muhammad, who's a part of the Nation of Islam, he said, not only did they did that, they did what you call counterinsurgency drugs. Every time we do something that's heroic or we get into a situation where we're talking about revolution, they introduce heroin to us. And then after heroin, you had the era of Minister Farrakhan, the Million Man March, they introduced crack to us around the same time as the Million Man March. And this is this ploy of our enemy, our diabolical enemy. He does this continuously, to debase us. So one of the things that they do is they say that the pimp is a woman beater, that the pimp is a clown. And Willie, I don't know if you know, but I know some pimps that play golf, that wear nothing but Armani suits, that go to political campaigns, that donate money to, and you would never know that they pimping. And most of them are white. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they don't tell you, that, Dennis Hoff, who owned the Bunny Ranch, was a white man. Had 19 prostitutes at any given time selling real legal coochie. So
and
we
they
got
allowed it.
Yeah. So they and then another thing they don't say about the word pimp. In the 1800s, did you know, Mr. Willie, that pimp means debonair and gentleman? It didn't become negative until the 60s, and that's what people don't understand. And we know prostitution is the world's oldest profession. So we know that African Americans didn't have nothing to do with that. And then even if you want to know where the concept of this is this legendary gang that was passed on to me from other ism, we call ism pimps, all the way back in the day. Said it really started with the European raping our women. The white man, the slave owner, the master used to rape the women. And the men couldn't do nothing about it because they were slaves. They were chattel slavery. They were actually registered slaves. So what the men would do that were married to the woman, they would say, hey, next time master take you in that room and he have sex with you, he give you one pork chop, ask for 2 pork chops. So that system of manipulation began in slavery. So in 1865, when the so-called black man finally got his Emancipation Proclamation, his freedom, he knew that the white man had an appetite for the black woman. That's why you always see these light-skinned brothers. They didn't come, we came over here dark as tar. You know what I'm saying? The light-skinned people came from amalgamation. European slave masters amalgamating with our sisters, raping them, if you want to go by to today's society terms, and then sending them back out there. And, here you dark as tar, and, she's talking about some baby, we having another child. And the child come out half white. She know, he know that what really happened was she was raped. So we start manipulating. And then, it's an old saying, back in the days when you see those black men with those carriages and those horses, and you thought they were, what they call them, butlers or drivers? No, they were pimps. So they went from horsey backs to Cadillacs. See what I'm saying? So that's how you get that scenario. But it all comes from, a system of manipulation. It also comes from degradation. Them raping our women, like really literally raping our women. That's where you get light-skinned babies from. You know what I'm saying? It comes from the raping of our sisters. You know what I'm saying? Our ancestors, so to speak. So that's how we get to it. But, another thing that the reason you ask why pimps is looking at negative, you got to remember, 99, I say about 70% of the tricks is white men. Successful white men. Coochie is expensive. $1,000, you got to have a good job. You got to have some kind of business about yourself. So the senators and the congressmen, at one time, the track was in Washington, D.C. The track is where prostitutes sell their body at. And all of the dates and the tricks of that era of time were the senators. So you got to remember, those are the ones who make the laws. They hate the fact that a black man who calls himself a pimp, right, can take a woman, a white woman, and send his way, and he give her everything because of the power of the coochie. And he can't even control his little head, because she got him so tied up, and then she give him all the money. He hate that.